All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Those of you who were here at the earlier session, thank you for enduring our voices twice in a row. I appreciate that very much. I apologize again also to those who were here earlier. I'm going to just do a quick review of the things we talked about with the adjudicators, with the directors, so that we're all on the same page here. Just real quick, thank you to the AE committee. And as you all know, it's been a roller coaster ride the last year. And I appreciate the fact that they've been very flexible and willing to give a lot of extra time. We've met many, many more times than we've ever met in the past to try to hammer out these things. And I certainly appreciate all of their dedication. And all of you as well, because we've all had to adapt in these circumstances. So as you know, probably the event is going to take place in the first 2 weeks of May. Although as we pointed out this morning, we're going to start adjudicating as soon as possible to try to help accommodate the people that are getting out of school early, things like that. Just so we're all on the same page, the cost is $60 per ensemble. Our goal was to try to make this as inexpensive as possible, to understanding, of course, what people are going through in their local programs. And we're judging middle school and high school and all three groups simultaneously. We do have the addition of flex class, and I'm sure Bill will talk a little bit more about this when he talks to you. But the idea, of course, is to be flexible in terms of the ensemble. So you may get you may be adjudicated an ensemble you've never had experience with before, because it's truly open to any kind of instrumentation and any kind of literature. Again, trying to help as many programs as we can in the pandemic. And each ensemble will perform only one selection. And unless they're in flex class, that will be one of the selections from the current required list. And again, you may have some classes that are or some ensembles that choose not to have a rating and go festival class. There's a lot of information. If people ask you questions, the best thing to do is to direct them to the OMEA website. Like, we spend a lot of time putting all this information out to people, and I'm sure you're not surprised to know they don't read very well. So it's causing a lot of issues. And Greg spends a lot of unnecessary time doing other people's work for them. And Bill and I spend a lot of unnecessary time answering questions that are clearly already been answered. So the more we can communicate with people, and you can maybe help us run that front line in communication, the better it's going to be for all of us. Not sure why that keeps happening, but there we go. JD has got everything about marching band out. If you're an adjudicator in marching band, you've got availability email from Chris yesterday, I think, or this morning, and you're able to sign up. I know I filled out my availability already this morning and made sure it was ready to go. And really what's really important is I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Greg, first of all. No one will ever understand the sacrifice that he has given to us all during this pandemic. And people have put him in very difficult places. Personally, I think he's been way more kind and accommodating sometimes than I think he should be. He knows that I think that, but we appreciate that. And this really, he's the reason this is all successful. We owe him a debt that we'll never be able to repay. And same thing for Bill. He came on, as director of adjudications in just the perfect time to help us navigate a good old pandemic. So it's been certainly difficult, but both of them have given such time. And Roger, of course, our fearless leader, who keeps us on track and has somehow managed to keep OMEA solvent and safe during the pandemic. And of course, as I said, the committee. We're using this time to not only try to accommodate the different situations, but hopefully to also reinvent what adjudicated events look like moving forward. And there's just been a lot of amazing conversation already. And then, of course, Dr. Usher, who is here with us today, our president, and the trustees, who also deserve a lot of credit navigating us through this pandemic. So, and most of all, I also want to thank all of you for being here this morning, but also for growing and accommodating and trying to provide the best opportunity for our students under situations that are less than ideal. So just thank you. What an opportunity for us to be a community and to rise to the challenge of helping one another. So I will turn things over, I think, to JD, who's going to give us some wisdom in this process.
Hey, good morning, everyone. And Bill asked me in here this morning just to talk specifically about the technical aspect of getting your recording captured, of course, and then up on the website or as part of the adjudicator portal, as we call it. Greg obviously can speak to the technicality of that side of talk about it a bunch, but I'm looking at names here, and many of you, of course, judged solo and ensemble over the last few weeks and months, so you've got a good handle on what the interactive properties are of the website and stuff. The big difference, of course, here for virtual large group is that you got to make a recording, which we're all very adept at, of course, but you've got to get that recording then uploaded to the website. And as Greg will tell you, some of the biggest headaches we had in marching band in the fall, and also a little bit with solo and ensemble, not from adjudicators, were just file format problems and just the technical challenges involved there. So there's two basic options we have here as far as recording your commentary and then uploading it. The first one is to use your SD recorder, which is probably what most people will be most comfortable with because that's what we do when we adjudicate large group, right? The other option would be to use your phone. And I'm going to talk in the context of an iPhone. I have no doubt that a Samsung or any other device can do this as well, but I have an iPhone, so I can't talk specifics on that. But those are the two basic options, and either one works fine. I'm going to talk about the SD recorder first. I've got mine here. Of course, we're all very familiar with that. There's something really important you have to be aware of, though. Think of how we do this live at large group. Of course, you have your recorder there, and we're all very adept at that setup. We've been doing it for years now. But there's two important things you're going to need in this capacity that you won't need or you didn't need when you were there in person. The first one is you actually have to provide your own SD card. You know, when we adjudicate at a site, of course, they provide the SD cards for us, right? In this situation, you need your own SD card. And when you purchased the recorder a long time ago, it probably had one. If you're a current director, then you probably have a whole drawer full at school or someplace, which is great. But if you're an adjudicator that is not currently teaching, you may not have an SD card because you never need one. You just show up to the venue and it's provided. So you'll need to make sure you have at least just one SD card. That's all you need. If you have a really old recorder, like when we first bought these 15 years ago, 12 years ago, you want to make sure you get an actual SD, the original SD spec. Many of you have upgraded in that time, and you can use one of the newer cards. But if you're in doubt at all about which type of card to use, order the original SD card. And as I go through this, Bill has notes on everything I'm covering. So if I say something too fast or you miss a little snippet, Bill will put this all in virtual form for you. And there's also a YouTube video on this as well. So first, you got to have an SD card. The second thing is, and this might be the bigger challenge for some folks, you've got to have a computer that reads SD cards, which again, if you're a director, you have some apparatus to do that because we go to large group, we get the comments back and we plan for our kids, right? But if you aren't a current director, you may never thought about that end user process of taking the SD card, putting it into a computer and getting the comments off, which is what you'll have to do, obviously, in this virtual adjudication capacity. So if you have a newer Mac, you might think you're all set, but actually the newer Macs the last 3 years have discontinued SD cards on them. I can't speak to Windows machines. Most of them probably still have an SD card slot on them. So those are the two things you got to ascertain before you go down this route. You've got to have an SD card and an SD card reader, which you can buy if you have a new Mac. You can buy a peripheral. Bill's holding it up right now, a Donegal that plugs in. But if I'm losing you in this discussion, you might want to say, maybe the iPhone is a better option for me. But those are the two things we have to have. Beyond that, it's very straightforward. I know some folks like to use an external microphone when they adjudicate. Some folks like to use two. I wouldn't use two in this situation. The recordings for me as a director are great when someone comes in with two microphones. I can hear their voice great. I can hear the ensemble great. In this situation, though, I know what my band sounds like because I uploaded the video. I have a really good concept of what they sounded like because I recorded it, uploaded it, listened to it. So an external microphone to capture your voice is probably a great idea. I wouldn't set up a second microphone to capture the computer playing the audio. That's extra effort and probably won't turn out as good. So if you aren't using an external microphone, as many folks don't, just use your recorder as normal. Make sure it's set to MP3 setting, which is what we always do. That's nothing new. That's how we always want to do it, but it's really important in this process. We're not going to be able to upload a WAV file. So it's really important it's set to MP3, which again is our standard operating protocol, always has been all along. And from that point, of course, you're going to have the ensemble playing in front of you, the choir singing. You probably want to do a test commentary or level check like you would do normally on site. and make your comments as you always would. Bill will elaborate on that, of course. Here's where it gets a little different. So if this was in person, of course, you finish your commentary, you eject that card, set it on the table, put it in the envelope, a runner comes by and picks it up, right? And you're done, hand in the sheet. But here we've got to get those comments off the card. And again, I see many folks out there who are current directors and you know exactly how to do this. We do it all the time for marching band or a large group as we plan for our kids. But for the handful of folks who are not current directors and only deal with this in an adjudicator setting, let me real quick share my screen here. So I take that SD card out of my recorder, pop it in my computer, and you can see I've got my SD card here. Okay, double click on it. Directors know this really well. So this is kind of confusing. You double click and you see this is how my recorder works. I have 4 different folders here or 6 different folders, and I don't know where that audio file is. Actually, I do because I checked it this morning, but it's in Music 1. Sometimes on your recorder, you have to dig down 3 or 4 files to find it. It can be non-intuitive, let me put it that way. And again, if you're a current director, you know this very well, but for folks who haven't done this before. So let me back up. Again, that's what the SD card looks like when I click on it. And my SD recorder creates these 6 folders and it always drops it in this one. So I would drag that onto the desktop, okay? And from there, Greg will kind of fill in the next part of this, but getting that file on your desktop is the important thing. From there, you can upload it. And of course, if you noticed, it had the MP3 tag on the end, which means it's the right file format for me to upload it and work with the website. One other really important step, again, which we would never do if we're judging live, you've got to make sure you erase that card. Here's the reason why. Let's say I've adjudicated 2 or 3 groups and I haven't erased that card. So I go in here and I might have 2 or 3 files. And of course, I'm really careful. I might assume, well, the 3rd one on the list is the one that I want to save. You can imagine how over the course of adjudicating 4, 5, 10, 15 groups, it's very easy for me to grab the wrong file, put it on the desktop, and then upload the wrong file, which obviously is going to be a breakdown in the process. So I would just delete the card after that process. You adjudicate an ensemble, get the file on your desktop, upload it to the website. Greg will show you that part, and then erase the card, which is what you always start with in person anyway. At least the cards are supposed to be erased, and your recorder, of course, formats it. So the SD process is very straightforward as long as you have an SD card and a computer that will read it or an attachment to your computer that will read it. And if you're really kind of in the weeds on this, send me an email or reach out to Bill or one of us. We can absolutely talk you through it. And again, there's 2 YouTube videos I put together that maybe go a little slower on this. The other option is use your iPhone. And again, if you have a Samsung or something like that, I'm sure it works just as well, but I'm going to talk in the context of an iPhone. This is the app you want to use. Voice Memos app, okay? And it comes free with your iPhone. If maybe you delete it for some reason, you can easily download it on the Apple Store. It's free and it's super easy to use, super easy to use. It literally just has one button, the record button. You tap that and it records. If it was me, I would hold it about the way I would my SD recorder. I wouldn't put it up to my face. I would hold it about here, 6 to 8 inches in front of my face. And it'll give you a very good capture. If you have a new iPhone, it's probably better than your SD recorder, quite honestly, the microphone and the technology involved. And it's certainly on par. And it's going to be very effective for this purpose. From there, though, you have the same challenge, right? So you made that commentary. You've given some great comments for those students. How do you get that commentary off of your phone and onto the website for OMEA to pass it on to that director? What I like about the Voice Memo app, and it's very straightforward, you can actually email the file to yourself. And it's very intuitive. Like I said, there's a short video that I put together if you're not sure how to use the Voice Memo app. And you can email the file to yourself and it'll pop up in your email. Simply drag it on your desktop. And then the process is the same from there. Greg will talk you through how to actually get the file uploaded. But those are the 2 options. And for the folks that did this during marching band, as far as I know, those are the 2 options everyone utilized. I mean, you could go with a much more complex setup, but those are probably the most user-friendly. And as far as deciding which one works for you, if you're very confident with your iPhone, it might be easiest just to do that. If you're a director that uses SD cards all the time and you've got a computer that can operate them with no problem, that might be your easiest option. But obviously our end goal, of course, is to provide a great commentary for those students that they can hear, clear and intelligible, of course, and that uploads properly. Greg will talk about that, but so many of his headaches have been about wrong file formats. And this, of course, is on the performer side. But I know during marching band, we had some problem with adjudicators that just as we were learning this process and navigating it, just uploaded a file or recorded it in a way that wasn't correct. And then it's a huge headache for Greg to get that file uploaded. We ended up emailing a lot of files out directly to directors because of a lot of challenge. And the scope of large group is going to be so much bigger than marching band was. I know Greg is very nervous about that, and I am too, just from his end of not having to email a lot of individual files out. So we want to have a lot of confidence in the system from our end as adjudicators getting the file correct. And of course, as the end user, as speaking as a director, to have those great comments to play for our kids. So that's all I have. I'm going to run to my soccer game. Again, if I talk too fast or left something out, Bill's got some very detailed notes on this. And there's 2 YouTube videos that go through this a little bit slower with a lot of screenshots and animations that I put together that might be more helpful. So unless there's any questions, I'm going to run to a soccer game.
Can I interject something here from the fall? One thing that helped me, and I don't know if it messes everybody else up, is that when I took it to the desktop, I just put the high school's name on, I renamed it so that I could keep track of who this was, so I wasn't giving somebody the wrong tape. So that really helped me. I don't know if that messes you guys up at all, but that if it does, I'll stop doing that, but it helped me.
No, that's actually preferred. I think it's safer, and I would go one step beyond that. Would be if it's a school that has multiple ensembles that you're adjudicating, you might want to put, you know, if it's, let's say you're doing bands as you would do, George, so maybe school name A, school name C, so that way you're uploading the correct audio to the correct ensemble for the class or whatever you want to do. What you would want to do is avoid, you know, a lot of special characters, quotes, ampersands, those type of things that sometimes make Amazon not happy when we upload. But yeah, I think that's a great idea otherwise.
Any other questions for JD?
Is the Android app voice recorder? I got a new phone and my old one. Yeah. Okay, good.
A lot of people are on the Apple platform, so I'm like JD. I don't know anything about Android.
Yeah, I know there's an equivalent, of course, and I'm sure it's probably just as easy to use, but I can't speak to it because I'm just not familiar with the platform either.
Yeah, we had to use it in the past for backup recordings in case the SD cards didn't work. So I just want to make sure it's okay to do it completely digitally without the SD cards. Awesome.
Yes, correct.
Okay, because the SD cards are getting hard to get a hold of and they're very expensive and all that. And that phone app works great.
Yeah, there are different voice recorder apps for Android because I use an Android as well. So there's if you're on Samsung, there's a Samsung voice recorder. The main thing is that the file output would be a MP3. So.
Or it could be MP4, correct, Greg?
Yes, on the iPhone, it could be the M4A format, which is the native iPhone format. That also works. So if you're doing an iPhone, you can just upload the file directly. It'll be fine. But on Android, the voice recorder is what you want.
Good to know. I'll make available a sheet that I made of different things that Greg may not touch, and I might not have touched everything Greg's going to talk about, but you'll get today, and I'll also email it to everyone. That'd probably be the safest thing is just to email it to everyone. But Jay has it available, and we'll put it in the window here in a while. JD, thank you. If anyone has questions for JD, be sure to email. Go to the soccer game, hang out in the room next to him, take your sweatshirt, you're good to go.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck.
Go team. Next, we have Greg, who designed this great platform, and what better person to talk about it than Greg, because he knows the ins and outs. If you have questions, leave the middleman out. Greg, you're on.
Okay, let me see if I can do a screen share here. Let's see. It's give me a system security thing, of course, as it always does. Sorry, give me just a second here. So a couple things while I'm doing this. It's going to be important. It looks like when I have to quit and come back, so you may have to take over, Bill. Bill, why don't you cover why I do that? the issue of how we're going to adjudicate differently versus solo and ensemble in terms of timeline. So give me just a second. I'll be right back.
The thing about the virtual large group, because if we made it a time frame like we did solo and ensemble, which would be, you know, you have until next Wednesday to get things done, and a lot of people tend to wait till the last minute. I don't know if you're a procrastinator or not, but I am. So what we're doing is we're releasing your files, your adjudications to the ensembles as they're finished up. We're not making a batch release. So if you have an ensemble A from school Z and they get all their information, they get their everything uploaded and they get the payment has been marked as received, I'm going to release that to the adjudicators. And at that point, you will be able to adjudicate any time in that window. And hopefully you'll adjudicate that quick. We don't want you procrastinating because we don't know, this is brand new. So we have no idea how many groups are going to take advantage of large group. So we want to get it done as quickly as we can. Greg's back. Rob, you got a question real quick, Rob? You muted. Unmute, Rob.
Just when will open season start for that? So we can be aware and looking.
We're going to close the availability next Friday, April 23rd, I believe it is.
Okay.
April 23rd will be the ability to close. And as soon as everyone accepts and as soon as those groups come in, we're going to start allowing, sending it out for you to adjudicate. And we want you to check your email or the website, especially the website. Check the website frequently so that if you get a new assignment, that you go ahead and take care of that.
We debated about anytime you were assigned something, sending out an email. We just figured that would get annoying. So it just makes more sense to tell you just to check frequently. Again, the goal here is as soon as an ensemble has everything in and is marked as paid, and that allows Bill to do the assignment. And as soon as he has a full panel, he clicks a button and then you can see it. So everything is just accelerated greatly because it's worthless to have a large group experience if the kids are on summer break before they get the results, let's be honest. So that's why we're trying to do things a little differently. Okay, can everyone see my screen at this point? Okay, so it's going to look very similar, but there are some differences in terms of this. Let me get this out of the way here. Okay, so with large group, there's just less to do. Number one, you will not see an ensemble appear that's not marked as paid already. So you don't have to worry about locked ensembles because Bill can't even assign adjudicators until they're paid. So it's a little different process. But again, otherwise it's going to look very similar. Where you will go in the website to get here would be you'd log in. I'm actually showing it from a different perspective right now, but when it's finished and ready to go, you would log in, go to Adjudicated Events, Adjudicator Task, and then you would see it. Then you would end up here on this screen. Now, there's only one ensemble appearing, but you'd have a group of ensembles. And so to start the process, you simply click on that one button. Let me go back and I'll go through this in a hurry. So the button I'm talking about here is right there. So if I click that button, then it loads things up. Now, we're going to have to talk about screen adjustments in large group a little bit more. The first thing would be that if possible, go to what's called the full screen mode. If I'm on an Apple device, you know, it's clicking here. I don't know if that's going to show in the recording. But if not, then up at the top in your view menu, you have the option to enter full screen mode. And then you could even go in the same menu on Chrome, I'm talking, to the view menu and choose to hide the toolbars. Now I've got a very large screen and it works pretty well. Still, some tweaking can be done. The first tweak here, and that thing keeps popping up. Let me move this. Sorry. Exit the full screen mode for just a second. I want to talk about this button.
I don't see Greg.
You don't see it?
No, I see everybody, but I don't see you. I see your name.
Is the screen not showing?
It is showing. I think you, I don't know how to get out of that. Maybe somebody else does, but I think somehow I think it's up in the right hand corner of, you need to click where it says swap with presenter screen, I think.
Okay, I have you, but I don't see Greg.
Joe, go to
I see-
go to side
I
by
see-
side speaker.
Okay, I see Brian. I mean, I see you. You filling my screen.
Usually it's the person talking. Do I appear now?
Your only your name,
Huh.
but that's okay. I can use my imagination.
Okay, so one thing on the website, this particular button, if I click it, you can see what happens. It brings the screen full width, and you absolutely positively want to be full width. The inherent challenge with large group is going to be the music. And there's only so much I can do, unfortunately, to make that to where, you know, you have maximum viewing. Let's see, get rid of that. Okay, so what I've done compared to solo and ensemble is that this is a much wider section. And if you happen to have access to a computer with a wide monitor versus a laptop, like I'm on a laptop right now, and there are some challenges because it's just hard to fit everything in. And so I've made this wider, but if you have a large monitor, I'm talking a 28-inch monitor or, you know, something similar or even bigger, then what's going to be really your friend is this button right here. Okay, right here, these three dots. If I click that, I have the option to go to 2-page view. And while it looks a little weird now, if I click this button, all of a sudden, I'm able to see 2 pages across. So it's like opening up a score. And if I'm on a larger monitor, I've got better visibility. On a smaller monitor, that's not going to work. On a laptop, you're going to have to stay with the single view, but this button is still going to be valuable because it's going to maximize the view of the music in the window size that you have. Okay, so if I click that, that's as good as I can get. There are a couple things still that I can do differently. One of them would be on the Chrome menu. If I do, let me exit the full screen here. Can you see, I don't know if you can see the actual menu bar at the top, but there's in the far right top corner of Chrome, there are 3 dots, kind of similar to these 3 dots. And if I click that, I can actually zoom in or zoom out and make the whole window smaller. So now, not ideal, but again, I'm able to see a little bit more. Now I've got all these items in a row. It's going to be about as good as I can get on this particular screen. I mean, this is just the reality is we're going to be limited just a bit. So with this, that's kind of where you are. But if you have a wider monitor, you're going to be a much happier camper. This option is a print option. I would not recommend doing it. Technically, you're allowed to download it, print it, and then destroy it if you absolutely have to. But this is a full score, as you can tell, for Finlandia. And so that's what, about 11 measures. So you can imagine these are going to go by pretty quickly depending on the tempo. And so keeping up will be a challenge. That's why that 2-page option is going to be your friend if you have the option to do so. So let's talk about the video. Over on the right here, you've got the video, and of course, you've got the play button right here. And I want to talk about this. Are you seeing the screen wiggle? I don't know. On mine, it's wiggling.
Yes.
Okay, good. So that's usually a case of a minute adjustment you have to make on the screen to get rid of it. So I thought a little humor here with the cartoon. As you're going through, yeah, see, this is where I just have to adjust it slightly. And that's probably going to have to be with the zoom in, zoom out. Okay, so going through this, A couple things. The video, if you resize, this is really important. If you resize the window after you start the video, it will jump back to the beginning. Not ideal. So try to get your settings exactly how you want them before you start. So once you start the video, you can pause it by clicking here. Okay. And you can make comments. Now, how you adjudicate for large group is going to depend on your style, but what I would recommend in the virtual world, in my opinion, is that you start off with focusing on the audio, which now, if you did so in Ensemble, that wasn't a tab that was there. And you have the option here to upload when you're done. But basically, you start the recording, you focus strictly on your music, and making your recording in your phone or in your recorder. And then if you need to pause, you could do so. So let's say you get along here and you need to make a written comment. Then you just go up and say the comments about tone. Maybe the group was blasting. I've made a few enhancements. Notice the green. Some people had trouble finding where to click and type. So here, as I start to type it, you'll notice it changes to a white background. And so, you know, it gives you a visual representation. I need to move this thing out of the way here. Okay, and then if I go to the next area, say interpretation, you'll see it's green, but if I go back to tone, they're there. Now, you'll see a little spinner thing each time I hit a tab, and what the website is doing is it's saving all your information, all your comments in all fields. So each time you do this, there will be a little delay before you're able to type. And the reason for that is it's protecting your work. We don't, with large group especially, there's a couple of challenges. One would be you don't want to lose your work if you're having trouble getting the audio upload to work. You know, the last thing you want to do is lose all your written comments. But again, I would recommend personally just going through the piece, focusing strictly on the audio recording. If I needed to pause to accentuate something here, then I could, and then I would just go back and pick it up and go on. So that's sort of the workflow. With that, there was a mention by one of the directors in the director meeting before this, and I think it's a good one, that you're not able to submit a rating until there is something in each of these. And so on Ensemble, that wasn't easily accomplished, but in a large group, it would be. So I'll probably add that feature. If you get to the point right now where rating, notice when I click a rating, I can't submit. Why can't I submit? Is because I haven't uploaded my audio file. So I've already have a little of the logic that individual was asking for, and I think it's a good request. So what I'll do is add in a requirement that you need something in each of these areas. I'm not going to put a limit on how small, but something. And then, you know, then once you do that and you upload your audio, which I'm going to cover next, then you can do your submit. The prompts over here in this area, they will change based upon your category. Don't feel like you have to take and necessarily cover every one of those. You don't have to say tone quality is this, breath support is this, blend is this. It's just go with a natural feel. What is not relevant in the virtual world is to do plus, minus, because number one, it doesn't give any real feedback, but number two, they don't transfer well because on a printed form, they flow nicely next to the area, of course, because you write it next to quality or next to that. It doesn't work. So if you want to cover all three, I would say, you know, quality is smooth, saxes are loud, whatever, you know, saxes sound like a bullhorn. But as far as that, again, don't just do pluses and minuses. Also, don't feel like you have to do this, 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 and this to break these up. I mean, the reality is it's impossible to trap for that. So all these vertical spaces go away on the printed form. I have no choice because we can't have a text overflow. It becomes a nightmare. So they have to fit in the section dedicated on the form. So these vertical spaces are stripped away. So that's why if you want to say, you know, quality, comma, or colon, maybe you do quality, nice overall sound, etc. And then from there, comma, Be careful of your blend. Occasionally sections are sticking out, or whatever the case may be. But then when you get to the point that you've finished your recording, you're ready to go. I put this first, by the way, because again, I recommend doing the recording first. Here's how you upload it. You just click here or drag, but I'm going to click, and then I'm going to choose off my desktop. Let's see, I should have, here's one right there. Okay, so it's uploading. And that's the file that JD talked about in his session. So it's that MP3. George had mentioned naming it for the ensemble. I think that's a great idea. And then make sure you play back. So it's working. And at this point now, if whoops, I just lost something there. Huh. Okay, I'm not seeing this. Jay, are you there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, all of a sudden it just stopped. Let me unshare for a second. Oh, sorry about that. That's weird. Okay, let me reshare again. Huh. Sorry. Any questions while I'm trying to figure out why this is doing this? I covered a lot, but it's, again, if you did solo and ensemble, it's very, very similar.
I had mentioned something about sending out the handout of such. I'm going to wait because he brought up a couple of things that I did not address in the form. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that it's not going to be available today. I will get it out ASAP though. So I want to make sure that people understand about the ability to maximize the screens.
Just a second here, sorry. For some reason I lost the website connection. With the audio recording, again, by naming that, putting it on the desktop, it makes it this, I think, the best approach. With the written comments, then if you do pause the video, that at least allows you to keep going in the flow, and I think that's not all bad either. Everybody's going to have to do it their own way, but that to me is kind of how I designed the system, with the idea of making it simple. Sorry, I'm fix one thing here.
Okay, I have a couple questions. So we record on our iPhone, email it to ourselves, and put it on our desktop to send.
Correct.
Okay, now with the one you just showed us, watching the score, we have to upload that as well?
No, the score and the video are uploaded by the director. So the only upload you do is the audio recording.
Okay.
Okay.
you.
So at this point, let me get back to hopefully sharing my screen here. Zoom is just being obstinate today. Okay, I think we're back to square one here. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, let's pretend that you've gone through, you've entered all your comments here, and you're ready for the rating. Now, with the rating here, one thing that's important is that we did find that in solo and ensemble, there were sometimes some potential violations. So just like you would do in an in-person, if you feel like there may be a violation of some sort, still give the overall rating, but before you do that, click this button, possible rules violation, and send a little information about what you think happened, but still continue to give the overall rating. And that way, then we have a chance to investigate. In the virtual world compared to in person, it's actually easier to investigate because we still have the video evidence. So it's a little different. But with this, again, the important thing to remember is that once you give the rating, you're locked out, which brings me back to this item right over here. And that's the home button. Let's say that you try to upload, but you're having trouble. You've got everything in, but you can't upload. What you can do is click the home button here, and in solo and ensemble, it gave you a message that it would erase all your comments. That's gone. We're allowing you to do that. So if you click yes, it takes you back to where you were, and you could continue on to the next ensemble if necessary, or try to fix the upload issue. Maybe you have to convert a file or something, and then come back. And if you go in, you'll see, once again, there's the comments. It's still there. The one thing, and we can't stress this enough, is this allows the potential, and it should not be done, but allows the potential to compare ensembles before giving ratings. And that's not what we stand for. It's not allowed in an in-person. It's not possible in in-person. So we are requesting politely that you not do that. I don't think it's an issue, but I just want to point that out. We're trying as much as possible to replicate a live performance and a live adjudication. So we don't have the luxury. I mean, later on, we've all been in a spot where you think, oh, wow, maybe I was too hard on that ensemble. I'd like to go back and bump them up, but you can't do that. That's done. So it's the same concept, but this does allow you to move back and then fix a problem, come back to it. So we've now uploaded our audio, we've entered all our comments, and we're ready for the rating, and we don't have a rules violation. So I just click one of these. Now, if an ensemble comes in as festival participation, you will see FP. You will not see 1 through 5. Their rating is festival participation. So you still have to click it, and that locks down then the adjudication for that ensemble. But otherwise, you'll see your 1 through 5. So let's say this group gets a 2. And now, because everything's in, now I have the green submit button right here. And I click that, and it reminds me that once I do this, I'm out of luck. I can't come back to it. And there it is. So that's pretty much in a nutshell the process. So very similar. If you have access to a large screen, please use it. That too wide will be great. Yes, Rob.
We've used our voice memo. We've recorded our comments. We've changed the name to West Jaga High School. We go down to share the video, and you can go into files and save to the iCloud desktop. Is the site pulling the comments from the iCloud desktop, or do we have to jam it into our computer desktop?
I've not tested to pull it right out of the iCloud. Let me test that. Technically, iCloud is going to be, depending on how you do it, if it's on your iCloud drive, is that what you're saying? Then you should be able to locate it in the iCloud drive, just like it would be an external hard drive.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so that won't be a common thing, but it would happen. But it should, as long as you have the authorization to access your own cloud, which you would, because it would appear, then you should be able to choose a file from that to upload.
Because I'll save my comments right to my iCloud desktop, and then it'll just be there.
Yeah, that should work.
Get lost on my desktop.
I'll double check that and test it myself, but that should work.
Okay, thank you.
Greg,
yes,
you said if you wanted to pause the video and then write some comments, but wouldn't your audio keep going and leave a pretty big blank in there?
Well, again, with that, I mean, the option is to pause the audio. I personally would recommend just doing the audio first. So that's why I put it first in the tab. When most of us adjudicate, if you're judging a large group, you're mostly focusing on the audio recording and looking at the score. You do have the luxury with pen and paper to be able to jot some things down. Maybe what you should do is just have a piece of pen and paper and jot yourself some notes that you want to cover, like a tone and so forth. What I could do is actually, it's not a bad, I mean, here's an idea, make a link available for adjudicators for a sample of the adjudication, the paper form that we use in person. And if you wanted just to print a few of those out, then you could just kind of write them down, almost like you're doing it in person. And then from there, go back and then add them into the system and the website. just an idea. That's pretty closely replicating the in-person, or just a piece of paper, whatever works for you. The key points that you come back to.
I guess I feel pretty strongly that we should approach this the same way we would if it was an in-person situation. Number one, that gives us consistency. And I think that prevents the possibility of making a mistake, because I can foresee the situation where maybe you muted both things, but then you forgot to unmute your audio recording. I mean, there's just too many things that can go wrong. So I think we should just start the recording, do the adjudication, just like you would in person.
It's the safest, yeah. So, but again, having a copy of the paper form wouldn't be a bad idea, because that really does replicate it. And then at your leisure, you go back and transfer that into the system. And by doing that, the advantage is you can upload the audio first before you do any written comments and make sure it works. And then you can come back once you're satisfied and then add it. I mean, makes sense. Other questions? There are keyboard shortcuts on either Apple or Windows, where usually it's the control key on Windows, the command key on Mac, and then the plus or minus sign. So for example, on Mac, command minus will shrink the screen down. You don't have to go up and change it manually. Or command plus on Windows would be control plus, control minus, and that shrinks things down. But I can't stress enough, do that prior to starting the video, because you will lose your spot. Why? Is I had to kind of do some gymnastics, if you will. I worked very hard to prevent the ability for downloading the video. And that's because of the Teach Act and junior high school and ensemble, but also just, the national's guidelines said we should not put these on YouTube because they're by nature shareable. So I had to go in and kind of modify that video player and strip out some of the functionality to prevent people from downloading. It's not perfect, but I tried very hard to be in compliance with the national guidelines. So there are a few quirks because of that, and this is one of them. So that's why that happens.
Greg, you've covered this, I think, but it would be maybe helpful to be specific with everybody. I have received a lot of questions about the box itself when you type your comments, and people were afraid to type past the box. And as a consequence, there were people who didn't put many comments in. Can you kind of address what's appropriate in terms of how much text you put into the?
It's going to vary. But for the most part, there's a fair amount of text. It's the vertical carriage returns. That was more the problem. I can probably run a calculation roughly on the amount of characters, but I didn't do a character count. And the reason for that, again, is trying to keep the thing as lean as possible. Whenever you run those type of features and everybody's running video on top of it, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But I saw some pretty substantial comments that still worked. Very few, if any, got clipped off. I think if probably similar, people tend to probably write a little bit less in some cases on large group because you've got the audio component trying to stay on schedule. With this, there is the potential to type more, but I'm thinking if you keep it within two average size paragraphs, you should be fine. First, I appreciate everybody being willing to do this. I mean, it's a brave new world, and I'm not going to kid you. Large group in some ways will be a little bit more challenging than solo and ensemble because of the audio upload, and I intentionally put a full orchestra score on my PDF demo for today because you can see that was actually 11 measures horizontally per page, but I have seen some have as few as 4 and 5 measures on one page. So. They're going to fly by pretty darn quickly, which is another reason not to even bother with the written comments until you're done. You're going to be too busy talking and watching the music. There was one option I didn't cover, and you have the ability, and I'll send this out. Bill, are you going to send out a follow-up email with links and stuff with what JD had? What I'll do is I'll have a quick brief video. If you want to pop the video out of its normal window, if you did so on Ensemble, you may have done this. You can actually pop it out and move it around, sort of a picture-in-picture kind of thing, if you find that to be easier for you. So I'll have a very brief video that shows how to do that. And then you can click on it and send it right back to where it was before. There's also, I'm still exploring one possibility where you can click a button and completely hide the entire right side and just see the music, and then click it and then slide it back in. I'm going to try. That would give you the most width even on a smaller real estate, especially if you're doing strictly audio. That would be the best option, because then that gives you full screen width and would allow laptop users to have the two pages. So I'm still working on that.
Hey, Greg,
Mhm.
what's the easiest way for the one time we get a score that's on its side? What's the quickest way to tip it back?
I didn't cover that, I'm sorry. There is a button up at the top. If you remember the button I clicked in the demo, and again, I can include that as well. I'll show some key points, but if you click that one button, it made the music fit the width.
Yeah.
To its left, it was a little curly, kind of an arrow going sideways. If you click that, it rotates. And if you click it again, it rotates again. So if they come in upside down, horizontal, it allows you to adjust for that. It's just a curved arrow icon in the same area that those other buttons were in the music area. And again, I'll make just a brief review of those buttons. They were on there for the solo and ensemble, and they're pretty much the same, but I'll make sure to include that. The one thing that might happen, it's possible, is if someone, heaven forbid, doesn't read directions and they're trying to do some things, and you just have this string of horizontal things, that's the option where maybe, we don't adjudicate and we ask for it correctly. It would be the best option, but the other choice is printing that out and then destroying it. But I personally like the idea of putting it back on the director and say, hey, look, you didn't do this right, because it's going to be a lot more work in large group when you have 30-page score, and that's not fair to expect you to print 30 pages out. With the adjudication, we are going to ask that as well as it fits into your schedule, once you get those assignments, if you just check in frequently, just start when it fits into your schedule. This activity is rendered useless I think to teachers and students if we get them the results after they're on summer vacation. It just is. So that's why we're trying to find a way to accelerate the process to make it meaningful for everyone. So obviously you have your own schedule and how things fit in, but we are going to start earlier than May 1st and try to get finished well before people leave for summer.
We'll still have people wait till the very last minute to make their submissions, but we're going to try to speed things along so we can expedite things. We'll also send excuse me, an email to the director saying, hey, get your stuff in early, you get it back earlier, kind of things. Greg, are you finished with all the tech stuff, the great stuff you've done?
I think so. Again, those extra videos links that we'll include later will cover a couple things that maybe I forgot to cover on this. Any other questions? I would suggest too on these videos, I'll probably still go in and shrink these things down more. But when you're watching them, we did have some videos as high as 6 gigabytes. There was one that was 6 gigabytes, and the grand total, if you're curious, if you're a tech person, a geek person, we ended up using about 8 terabytes of data for the Spring Solo and Ensemble. That would be 8,000 gigabytes. So quite a bit. So I'll try to make these as small as possible. But if you're having buffering issues, best option there, right above the video, there's a report video problem. Just click that button and I'll go in and shrink it down. I did that many times with Solo and Ensemble, but I'll probably just be proactive because the scale here is going to be considerably smaller, maybe a couple hundred at best. And so I'll just probably take care of those.
Craig's done an awesome job of making things very intuitive. So some of the stuff he's gone through today, it's kind of like, oh my gosh. But once you get your hands on it, you're going to notice how easy it flows, because he's a master at making it easily working for us, which takes a lot of thought on his side of things to make it seem effortless. So thanks, Greg. We appreciate your hard work.
Question?
Question.
Yeah, so we're going to adjudicate one selection only,
Correct.
and we are going to know that we've been selected to do this when our name pops up on the site.
Yes, what'll happen is when you log into the website and you go to the large group adjudications area. So in other words, you log in, go to adjudicated events, adjudicator task, then you'll see the virtual large group button. There'll only be one. Because what will also happen, by the way, is you could conceivably be judging 2 different weeks on at the same time, because we're going to be doing them when they come in. But you would just, you would, if you see anybody there, then you just can start adjudicating because you're ready to go. They've been paid for, everything's in, and you finish them at your convenience. And then if you check back a few hours later, you maybe see some more. You'll still see the ones that you've already completed with the final rating that you gave them. That way you can easily monitor. It won't be hard at all.
So you'll see the ones you finished up and also the ones that you haven't finished up.
Right.
In case there's a list of groups that you didn't get to.
Mm-hmm.
Greg? Bill, let me just quick follow up. I'm sorry, Ken.
Sorry.
Bill, you're going to email everyone though that that they're starting to be, or they've been assigned to a panel like usual, or how are you going to handle that?
I thought Greg, the idea was that we won't do that. They'll have to check. Is that what we were thinking?
Okay.
There were a couple changes. We did indicate that we asked that availability only be entered if they're willing to accept it. And that's all part of this accelerated process. So basically, if they made themselves available, it is assumed that they've already will accept. So they just check and go at their leisure.
And hence it is assumed that everyone who's available is going to be adjudicating, Bill?
As much as we can. We don't.
Okay, that's my only question, is just to make sure no one falls in the cracks, sort of, if we're expecting them to keep checking the website.
Yeah, we're going to try to use everybody we can. Again, we don't know how many people are taking advantage of this.
Yeah.
If the turnout's large, we'll be everyone. I will make it a point to keep everyone. I don't want to bombard your email inbox, but I will make mention if things are how things are going. I'll keep you in touch.
We're currently under 100 ensembles that have started the process. So it's a start, but everybody procrastinates. We're hoping that the motivation to finish it early by getting it in early is going to be something that maybe will eliminate some of the procrastination, because that would be great.
As far as your standards. Oh, Ken, did you have a question?
Well, Jay asked most of it, but when do you anticipate those first ones will be available to us? The first groups to adjudicate.
As soon as they're marked paid after the 23rd, anytime after that.
Okay.
So as soon as I see.
All right, thanks, Bill.
As soon as I see on the 23rd things are available and I see groups that need to be adjudicated, I'm going to assign adjudicators on possibly the 24th.
Yeah. So you could potentially start as early as the 24th, depending on how things play out.
Bill, question for you. Will we as adjudicators be able to see the final ratings of the group at any point in time?
We never discussed that. That's a good question.
Yeah, certainly that could be done. We normally have the recaps and so forth available and so forth. I don't think that's an issue. It would be probably a week or two, after the last event, just to make sure everything's taken care of. Because the highest priority in sequencing would be to make sure to get the adjudicators paid. So by going through that, getting Roger what he needs, because what he does, of course, is you may be adjudicating in, again, multiple districts, and so he charges accordingly, to each district to make it all work out. But that would be the first priority. But a recap is easily done.
I thought of that too, Dan. That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Bill?
Yeah.
Will we be on the same panel for everything we judge, or might there be different bands with different 3 judges?
There will probably be the different judges for each panel.
Okay.
The nature of this approach is going to almost require that, I think. It's just because keep in mind, as some of these ensembles become available, they may be an ensemble in your teaching district or your OMEA district, and so they're automatically filtered out. So let's say you're in District 3, and we've got 5 groups ready to be assigned, and 3 of them are from District 3. Well, you know, the panel couldn't remain intact if one of the panel members on that was from District 3, that type of thing. We try to keep it as close to possible to the real person or real event.
As far as standards go, you know, we're going to accommodate as much as we can. The first 4 things that we talk about in the handout that we're going to send to you, the one is our goal is to provide directors and students with meaningful and educational minded feedback about their performance while being cognizant of all the challenges of 2021 school year. So you got to keep that in mind as well. Our task is to deliver recorded audio commentary that will focus on student achievement. That's an important thing there too. Next, the intent to deliver student-centric adjudicated recordings that recognize and reward success in musical while providing suggestions for individual and ensemble improvement. And the bottom line is that we make comments appropriate for the realities of COVID. So, you know, do you have to lax your standards? That's up to you. You know, attacks are attacks. Releases are releases. Consonances are consonances. Vowels are vowels. You know, you can spin this in a positive way. That's totally. We don't tell you how to adjudicate. You know, we don't tell you. You know, not everybody has the same preference of color. Same thing. For me, precision is a must. Intonation and precision. You know, that's super important. Other people can let that go. So we're not telling you, you must, every attack, every release, blah, blah, blah. So that's just like normal.
The only thing we would add to that, I think, well, something we should add to that is that you're going to have to be, I think that standard is maybe extreme under the circumstances when, like Brian Stevens was just talking about, how his clarinet intonation is affected by the fact they have to wear masks over the instrument. The students might be sitting 10 feet apart. So if you're going to talk about precision, you know, when the students are rehearsed, and I mean, I adjudicated a group, it was a 24-piece brass choir in a gymnasium that were like, I mean, it was insane. And they had to, you know, I had to understand, I was pretty sure things weren't going to line up the same way that they might have if they were sitting in a normal setup. And then there's the quality of the, you know, the recording. Hopefully that'll be good, but I certainly adjudicated a few things that the setting of the microphone was such that it impacted the quality of the sound that I heard. So I agree. I mean, I certainly, when I judged Stone Ensemble, I kept to the fundamentals of what I would expect a student to be able to execute, but I also had a pretty wide flexibility for things that are definitely possibly being affected by COVID. And I don't think you can tell that because we don't know their background. So I guess my advice is try to be as user friendly as possible. I know I got some complaints from adjudicators that I suspect was simply because the situation in that school was so extreme that it had a very negative impact on the ability of the students to perform. The adjudicator didn't know that, but I mean, I agreed myself that I thought that maybe the adjudicator probably should have been a little bit more thoughtful about what might these people be going through. So that's my personal opinion. I'm certainly not speaking for OMEA, but I think in my experience that I'm having right now, I have the opportunity to see a lot of programs, and it is frightening the variety that's out there. You know, so Dan, I know you have something to add.
If I'm correct, we're judging on a district level and not state level.
That is correct.
And also, I know just from personal experience, a lot of schools that are going to be recording in a room that they aren't able to rehearse in. For instance, they may have to record in a gym because they're allowed to use their auditorium, or they can't record in their band room. So sometimes, when we talk about precision, we talk about events, some of these schools are going to have to use rooms or facilities that they're not used to playing in just because of size and so forth. So I just want to make sure that we're all cognizant of some of the challenges that these schools are in. And again, as Jay said, looking at positive and, still have standards, yes, but understand what some of these are having to go through.
So just do your best. That's all we're asking. Just make sure, you justify things. And give, the important thing that we have to remember, OMEA Adjudications is a tool. We're trying to make our membership better musicians and hear better. They might not hear like you do because they might have developed that skill yet, but it's our job to kind of guide them to what to hear. Rating wise, it's up to you. You just rate how you feel. You don't have to be mean about giving ratings. Okay, you suck, you get a 3. That's, those days are gone. We just say, perhaps you could continue working on your intonation, blah, 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 and just spin everything positively. That's the important thing, is how can you say something to make them grow in a positive light? You can, the old honey and bees and whatever analogy you want to use about attracting bees and whatnot. You can use the same thing with directors. Let's see, there's a couple other things we needed to discuss. I will send those videos that JD worked on. Those will come in the handout. Check your assignments, check your setup, just different MP3. I'm just looking through the things that I make sure that we've touched on.
I just had a real
yes, George.
quick question about timing. I don't mean to interrupt your thought pattern. I know it's kind of locked into what people pay as probably a little bit of problematic about our weekend, and I'm trying to be real sensitive about the turnaround time. I know at solo and ensemble, it came up to the day before we were supposed to have everything back to you, and I still had 8 kids that hadn't paid the night before. So it was a little bit rough. I mean, getting everything in and back. I was able to do it, but when do you anticipate, like if we're on the first week, when the last one we're looking in our inbox for? Because unlike on solo and ensemble, we could see all the kids, even the ones that hadn't paid. For now, in this situation, we're not going to see the ones that haven't paid until they just happen to appear to us.
Remember, we're making this up as we go. So we're trying to make it as user-friendly for everybody we can. I would certainly think, they're in the past with the solo and ensemble, we gave the directors and the chairs a week to get their finances and make sure everything was paid and whatnot. So like the due date was on the 1st, for example, we would not assign anybody until the 8th, and then we'd expect everything back for the following weekend. So, I mean, we're going to give you a couple weeks.
Yeah, we're not expecting you to drop everything in your life. Everybody has their own things they have to do, but it's just our hope is to still accelerate the process in general. But there are going to be exceptions, and I think, George, the question I heard from you or concern was that you don't want to be at the last second dumped with 20 bands that you weren't expecting. And if that's what I'm hearing, that I don't think that will happen. I think it's going to be spread out fairly well. We'll see. It's a guess.
Yeah, we're at the mercy of how they submit them. And just, Dick, there are 3 adjudicators per group.
Yep.
So it's going to be a three panel adjudications.
Yeah, we are exactly at right now 100 ensemble registrations started, not completed in terms of everything submitted. So right there's 300 total slots, the three judge panel and 100 groups. So, you know, that's where we are now. Where we'll be in a week, I don't know. We're not going to be talking about the huge numbers of a solo and ensemble, but of course there are 3 adjudicators per group.
And like you said, we don't plan on making you drop everything in your life.
No.
You just need to check. If you check it at a certain time of day or whatever, and if you happen to have 5 groups all of a sudden, you can do those 5 groups when you get to it.
Yep.
You know, this isn't your full-time gig.
Yeah, that's definitely not an expectation. We're just, if it fits into your schedule.
So you got a lot of great questions, everyone, and we don't always have the answers. But we're trying like crazy to figure things out. And that's what Greg does a really good job of brainstorming and thinking through things logically.
So Richard Sherrick had a question about, you know, will the groups be adjudicated by 3 or just 1? Each group still has a panel of 3. So it's sort of like a junior high panel without sight reading is what it amounts to. And no one gets to start adjudicating until all 3 are assigned. So in other words, once Bill has all 3 adjudicators assigned to one ensemble, he clicks the button and then it appears the adjudicators that are assigned to that ensemble. And by doing that, we don't want to start adjudicating until we have all the slots filled. That's important.
If you come up with some great questions, email us, because if we don't know the answer, we're not going to make it up. We're going to figure it out. And we appreciate your input a lot.
Although we're making a lot of stuff up as we go. I mean, that's the reality. That's been the theme for everybody all year, hasn't it? Gumby should become the national hero, right? Flexibility. Showing my age, Gumby, sorry.
Have you covered everything, Bill?
I believe so. If we have questions, we have a few minutes. So we're actually late, but if you have any questions, we're glad to answer them.
Yeah, let me just give you one more. I have a favor to ask of you. COVID's given us an opportunity in some cases to really take a hard look at how we do things. And I think, frankly, the culture of our country right now. There's so many forces at work and so many things that are conflicting. And as you all know, as an organization, we try to serve an awfully wide array of programs. And those different constituents don't often understand that there are other constituents with different circumstances. So as a reality, we get pushed and pulled a lot in terms of what people are looking for in our adjudicated events. And it's certainly been a long time since we've had this opportunity, but we're going to do a roundtable, some kind of format in June. I think it's one of the first weekends. I think it might be the second weekend in June. And the idea is really to get adjudicators, participating directors sitting at the same table, essentially, and discussing the problems that they see, the things they want to see out of adjudicated events, and then having that conversation with you, that you can share with them the things that you believe are important parts of adjudicated events, so that we can have an actual meeting of the minds. There's a perception out there frequently that somehow, this is sort of the ivory tower version of music, where the adjudicators, don't have a vested interest. And frankly, I don't think they understand that most of you are their colleagues, that you're practicing band directors yourselves and choir directors and orchestra directors. So the more of us that we can get together, the better picture we're going to have of the things that we need to, address, things we need to keep the same, maybe things we need to reinvent. And the committee's already had some good discussion. There's a lot of fear. If you haven't talked to practicing directors, they have a lot of fear about what their programs are going to be like as they're moving into the post-pandemic era. And so we've already talked about some ways that maybe we can make things feel a lot more comfortable for them next year, and some ways that maybe we can provide them better support to help rebuild their programs. We all have a vested interest in that. And obviously, we all believe in the importance of music education. So I hope you'll be able to join us. I'll communicate the details with you very shortly. The committee has been working on this kind of in pieces, parts, and we decided that the best thing we can do is to facilitate conversation in our community and really start to send the message that one of the best things about our organization is that we aren't a circuit that has adjudicators that adjudicate certain kinds of groups. Instead, we are all members of this association. We're all educators and we're all working together. So I hope that you can help us out with that as the time comes forward. So, and thanks again for everybody being here today. It's great to see all your faces, and I can't wait to see you face to face. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. And we'll certainly hang around for anybody that wants to talk things more one-on-one. But again, thank you all for being here, and have a safe rest of the year.